Welcome back into the show. It is your host, Chase Davidson, with your favorite co-host, Chase Sned, back for another episode of Showtime College Football. We are upgrading, getting some fancier stuff going, going to be doing some live streams, as well as some hot takes from you guys live coming on YouTube this week. We'll let you guys know on our Instagram and on our X what we're going to be doing for that and when. But we'd love to hear from you guys and have you guys out there live for our podcast. This is the last one we should be doing that is just me and Chase recording. So it'll be big. But let's talk about week 8 of college football. Indiana is good at football. Florida is not that bad at football. And so much more. Chase, what was your favorite game of week 8?
I mean, obviously, Oregon going on the road, silencing the spoiler maker talks, 35-0, new number 1 team in the nation. Pretty excited about that as a Duck fan. But there was a lot of good games once again this week. Miami-Louisville was just a shootout, fun to watch. Bama-Tennessee was kind of a slow start. We can probably talk about this one for a little bit. I don't know. Very interesting game for Bama and Tennessee. Tennessee's defense, I think, is the main takeaway here for me. They're the reason they won this game. What do you think?
No, yeah, for real. I think Tennessee, that's one thing that we've been hyping up all year is their offense is great, but it's actually the defense that has been setting apart this team from other Tennessee teams under Josh Appel, because Josh Appel, we've known him as an offensive mastermind who the defense plays catch up. And now it feels like this team is very well balanced. Obviously, the Arkansas loss, Arkansas is a decent team, but I think people are starting to kind of, all right, this team can play. But I think the story here for me is more Alabama. No discredit to Tennessee, but what is going on at Alabama?
Yeah.
I've heard people saying, I've seen this quote out there that is just wild. I want to see what you think about it, Chase. It's 17 years of discipline, all lost in 7 games under DeBoer. That is crazy.
As an Oregon fan, I hated DeBoer the last couple seasons, and I always gave him his respect where it was due. But I don't know what's up with him, man. I don't know if it's just because, personally, I don't feel like he's playing. He's playing better teams probably week in and week out, every other week or so. But I don't know. It's just interesting to me. Milroe, there was some throws Milroe made. Even Nico, too. Both quarterbacks in the first half, I was just like, these guys just – I don't even know how they were even in the talks for Heisman at all. It was kind of there's a couple interceptions by both of them. I'm just I read it on the TV before they even threw the ball. I'm I hope they don't throw it there. And they sure enough, they threw it there. Mm-hmm. To where, DeBoer, I don't know. We have a group chat. A lot of people some people think it's a discipline thing. In the locker room, he's not keeping guys in check. They're not keeping their focus. I don't know, because they have the talent to be Bama, that we know to where I don't know what's going on. It's just weird. It's very weird.
And especially after this week when Georgia went in and beat Texas. We'll talk about that obviously in a little bit. It's just weird to see these 3 weeks of Bama football that are just, straight up bad.
Yeah.
They're 1-2 in the last 3 weeks, and that one win is to South Carolina. Barely at home.
South Carolina, they're in our top 30. I think South Carolina is actually a pretty good team. Best 4-3 team in the nation.
Yeah.
But, you shouldn't be, especially at home, you shouldn't be winning by 2 to South Carolina because, and the thing is, South Carolina, they got an onside kick. They had a chance to win, and then their offensive line and quarterback just decided to not play that last drive. But,
right,
unacceptable for Bama standards.
Well, it's just crazy. I'm seeing a lot of stats out there that Bama's leading. I think they're 5th in the FBS in penalties per game, and it's just crazy to see. I don't know, this team. I don't even know what to think about them. They dropped to 15, their lowest ranking. What is it? That's their lowest ranking in 15 years.
I don't know.
Something crazy like that.
2019. I don't know how low they got. They had 2 losses, I believe. Played Michigan in the Outback Bowl.
We have talked. I have seen the stat where it's this is a the first time Alabama's had 2 losses before November.
Yeah, I saw that too.
2007, which is just a wild stat. I mean, just the more you read about this team, the more you realize how insane Nick Saban was. And the aura of Nick Saban will continue to grow as you realize that what he did was not normal anywhere.
No.
So, I mean, that's just absurd. So, yeah. I mean, it's insane. So, Bama to me right now looks like that if they win out, they could still maybe make the playoff, but if they lose one more game, they're probably out of the playoff.
Yeah, it's tough to say because we have there's a couple 2-loss teams. I mean, you can even put Ole Miss in the mix. It's like they were projected to be a top playoff contender, and now they have 2 losses. It's like, well, are they even going to be in the playoff now? So yeah,
the SEC race is a mess. It is a mess, guys.
Well, like Georgia has the 4th highest percentage to make the championship right now, just because their remaining schedule. Like,
right,
it's just crazy. But
and you look at like who would you say are like the top 3 teams in the SEC?
Georgia, Texas. Honestly, based on the last few weeks' performance, I'd say LSU over Tennessee.
Oh, not Tennessee.
Over Tennessee or Bama.
Really? You say LSU over Tennessee?
I think LSU's looked more complete.
You mean like a power rankings, LSU's above Tennessee?
Yeah,
okay.
I would. As of right now, after these last few weeks, I mean, yeah, first part of the season, that USC loss looks bad. I think if they replayed that, LSU would kill USC. But obviously, a loss is a loss. I'm not going to take that away from them.
Well,
but
and I think it's important to talk about that Texas A&M is not even in the talks. I mean, obviously, they had the early loss, but they're 4-0 in conference.
I guess.
And their remaining schedule is not bad.
It's just like, I don't know. They haven't – all of their wins, besides the Missouri win, that was really convincing. The rest of them just haven't been convincing to me.
No, they haven't. And that's
34-24 against Mississippi State. And even I think it was 44-34 for Georgia or something like that.
Yeah, it was close to that.
Yeah. And then Arkansas, they beat by 4. Bowling Green, 6. Florida, 13. But, yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know what to think of A&M. I think they're definitely right there, top 4, top 5.
But it's weird. It's hard to say like, oh yeah, Bama's going to get in as a 10-2 team. If you want to take the 9-3 discussion, I don't think it's even possible because there's going to be so many 10-2 teams this season. I can already see it. I can already see there's going to be a 9-3 Bama versus a 12-1 Iowa State, Kansas State. Someone who lost the Big 12 championship, and we're going to give the nod to the Kansas State team that's 12-1. It's going to be like that, and a 9-3 team is not making it. If they had lost to Tennessee, Georgia, and maybe LSU, like maybe, but the loss was to Vanderbilt. And so I don't know. That's tough. It's just tough. Speaking of the SEC race, I did want to bring up one thing. I don't think it's being talked about, even though this team's always overrated and way too talked about. Florida is not that bad.
Yeah, no, they've definitely figured things out.
Now they are entering their really tough stretch that we've talked about all season. They're about to play 4 straight top 20 teams. 3 of those being top 10 teams. But I'm just saying, it's not that crazy.
Just saying. Yeah. Anyways, that's SEC. It's like Chase said, it's a mess right now. I don't even know really what to make of it anymore. Because I have no idea. Because you have Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, and LSU all in the top 10 right now, all with 1 loss. And I don't know, it's kind of like it's almost like the Pac-12 or Big 12 in years past. They kind of they're all just beating each other up. They're all giving each other losses right now.
Yeah.
To where by the end of the season, who knows? Maybe we'll have 2 10-2 teams in the title game, to where, who knows?
Well, moving on to Georgia, Texas, that game is interesting because it's hard to look. It's very, people want to look at it black and white. A lot of people will look at that game, and people who watch the game will look at and be like, yeah, Georgia went in there and handed it to them. But here's a few things I have. Georgia did go in there and handle business. Not taking anything away from that. But Georgia had 6 drives that they scored on, which is still, got to consider that. But the Texas defense was given the most outrageous points on the field to defend from. they actually played insane. Georgia's offense did not look very great because of those 6 drives that Georgia scored on, only one of them was more than 35 yards long. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it's just
they had one
we have
full
right
drive.
here. We have 3 lost fumbles by Texas.
Yeah.
2 from Quinn, 1 from Arch, which is another story in itself.
Yep.
Texas has entered the convo of we don't know who's going to play quarterback, it seems like. You're down 20-3, I think, against the number 5 team. You're number 1 in your own stadium, and you pull your quarterback. It's still the first half. Now, for me personally, that's just kind of demoralizing to a team. That if I was a receiver, I'd be like, okay, our coach already thinks we lost this game, you know? And don't get me wrong, Quinn wasn't doing too much out there, but still, you got to let your quarterback do what he needs to do.
Well, but didn't Quinn go back in after a little bit?
Yeah, it's right here. Quinn, he came out and Arch threw it only 6 times. I mean, I don't know how many runs were in there as well, but 6 throws and a fumble, and then he pulled Arch back out and put Quinn in.
And then Quinn did decide to do a little bit better.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, I know that Sark has said going forward, he said that Quinn is the starter right now. Even after like this Monday presser, he said Quinn is still our guy, which I think is a great decision. I think Quinn is your guy. But well, I mean, I'm giving all the credit to Georgia, but Texas isn't that far gone.
No. And another thing, you hit it right on the head, is Texas defense. Carson
actually
Beck
looks great. If you
Carson Beck, 23 for 41, 175 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks.
Yeah, Carson Beck did not have a good game. All due respect, he did not have a good game.
Trevor Etienne is the story of this game with 3 touchdowns.
Yep. Yeah, it's wild. It's hard. So the normal person would see, oh yeah, they're up 23-0. They're gonna take this game. They're so much better. And even through all of that, you see 30-15. You're like, oh, it was a 2-score game. My gosh, I mean, they dominated. It's like, well, they did on some things, but it was very much inflated. Georgia took advantage of Texas's mistakes.
Well, yeah, I mean, like look at the play-by-play. It's just punt, 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 punt for Texas. You know, Texas came out and did nothing.
Yeah, and Georgia's defense. I mean, you got to credit Georgia's defense. Their pass rush was crazy.
Here we go. Let's just go through Texas's first half. Punt, punt, fumble, punt, interception, punt, punt, fumble.
Wow.
So I don't even think they crossed the 50-yard line at this point. Yeah, I don't even think they did. To where, I think it was more of the Texas offense just not being able to get anything going until the second half. Third quarter, Texas looked great. You know, they made it a 1-score game. It was 20.
You're right. They didn't cross the 50-yard line.
Yeah, it was 23. It was 23-15 going into the fourth, and everyone's like, all right, you know, Texas is right here. And then Georgia scored right away in the fourth and kind of put it away. But
it was kind of a sloppy game.
Yeah, it was just a weird. I hadn't watched too much of it. Chase had his other reception this last weekend. Shout out to Chase.
I had my reception.
And I was kind of catching bits and pieces of it between talking to people. But yeah, so I don't know too much of how this game really looked. I've kind of just read stuff, but
yeah, I think it's I'm excited to see more. Maybe these teams will play again. I did not lose too much hope in Texas. It didn't look. I mean, you can't make those mistakes. I mean, the mistakes were still made. We're not saying that. Well, they should have won. They could have won. Well, they didn't win. They didn't do well. They did get a beat down on them a little bit, but I think it is necessary to consider that defense of Texas kind of is the hope for Texas fans. And I mean, the offense did have those problems, but I think the defense will keep Texas in a lot of games. And so I'm hoping the offense doesn't make those mistakes, and that's a very different game. And so I think Georgia is still yet to see their very best game at all, because I think that offense could use a lot of work. This might be a wake-up call for both teams. So, I think we move on. We move on to the Big 12.
Wow. Big 12 is, very crazy conference. Kansas State with a very dominant win on the road in West Virginia.
Right.
45-18. I think Kansas State is every week since the BYU game, they've just gotten better.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, Colorado, they only beat by a touchdown, but I also think Colorado is a top team. I almost put them in my top 30 this week.
Yeah, they're right there.
Colorado's right there. They just can't beat the big teams, I guess, which means they're not that good, but they're just right there.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, here's what I like from them. They're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. Now, Nebraska is still, that's the loss that hangs in my head a lot. Like, yeah, they lost to Kansas State in a close one. Kansas State's a really good team.
Well, especially this last week with Nebraska, man.
Yeah, I know. And it's just like Colorado, it's like that Nebraska win was just bad. Now, it's been a while. I think they've regrouped. I think they found something.
The Shador's finally getting some time. So,
yeah.
But, yeah, Big 12, UCF, Iowa State, BYU, Oklahoma State was almost the exact same situation.
Yeah.
Same score. Both Iowa State and BYU drove down and scored with less than a minute left to take the lead. UCF also had a pick six, which I'm sure most of you saw. If you're listening to this, you're probably a college football fanatic and saw on social media or watching the game. UCF had a pick six that he dropped on like the two. It was like the earliest one I've ever seen.
But, Iowa State, yeah. Holy cow. What a week in the Big 12. I, of course, was very, very pleased to be in attendance in Provo on Friday night as what was an emotional game. But it opened up a can of worms, I think, for both teams, especially BYU. I'm talking about BYU and Iowa State. Both these teams shown that they're human, and that 7-0 they got to fight for. Once again, without my bias.
How you feeling as a BYU fan going to UCF this next week?
Yeah, that's a scary game. I mean, that's a scary game. UCF is a great team. I mean, that is a very, very good 3-4 team. I'll say it right there. That's one of the best 3-4 teams in the country. They've not gotten the good end of the straw. They've not done well, and I feel like that. I mean, it's a scary. Luckily, it's 1:30 p.m. kickoff, which will help. Sorry, 3:30 local time. But I don't know. I mean, I was saying, in my unbiased opinion, I still feel like BYU is the stronger team against Iowa State, but both these teams are showing that they got to hang on because they're the biggest teams in the conference, and it's scary to be in this type of conference where everyone is pretty equal.
Yeah, it's I think especially these last few weeks. I know BYU beat Arizona pretty good, but there's a few moments in the BYU game that we saw their weakness, and I think Oklahoma State definitely hit on that. And same with Iowa State. Every week, I think the gap's starting to get smaller and smaller with these teams that they're chasing with this BYU Cup. Go Cougs. Throwback.
This thing's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's actually pretty dope.
I don't usually buy the souvenir cups for football games because they're like $9, but this one I had to.
Throwback game.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah, like you said, especially this conference. I mean, Kansas State's right there. Kansas State may very well win out.
Well, I think the consensus is, even from people in Provo, they might say it. Kansas State is probably the best team in terms of firepower who could match up against a team in the playoff.
Well, here we go. Kansas State plays Kansas this week.
Yeah.
Then Houston, Arizona State, and Cincinnati. I don't see them losing any of those. And they finish off at Iowa State. So
I didn't realize they finish at Iowa State.
That game will probably be a decider.
Armageddon.
Iowa State choke somewhere, or Kansas State as well. That game will probably be a Big 12 championship opponent, one of the teams decider.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, maybe both get in. Maybe BYU falls off. We don't know. To where that's a huge, huge game at Iowa State too. So,
yeah, and I mean, and now we're looking at, I mean, BYU. If BYU continues to do what they're doing, they've got at UCF, at Utah versus Kansas at home, at Arizona State versus Houston. So, I mean, obviously the Utah game is the game that is circled for multiple reasons. It's a rivalry. Utah's still talented. Utah not doing so well, obviously. Utah fans are not happy about that. Offensive coordinator stepped down, which I think is a good thing. But things are not going well right now. Hopefully they can get organized. But that is not a very hard schedule to finish for BYU. I mean, I think most people could see BYU going 4-1 in that. So 11-1 right now is the consensus for BYU fans. And I think across the country, you look at that schedule and I think it's entirely possible.
Yeah. So I think those are the 3 teams for sure that are fighting for the championship right now. So we will see. I mean, I don't know. Colorado's 3-1 in conference play as well. It's where all these teams might have one loss in conference play come end of season. So it'll be interesting. Big 12's very wide open still going into week 9, which is pretty crazy. I don't think any of us kind of expected to be this wide open.
Yeah. I mean, and there's still plenty of teams that could do it. I did want to, we're going to talk about it in our next episode, but some of our preseason picks for the Big 12, like everybody else, we're not alone, are just horrendous. I mean, it's funny to listen to the audio of us talking about the Big 12 preseason. I mean, it is just hilarious.
Yeah. We were
It is
so
bad.
confident on Utah, Oklahoma State, and Arizona.
Yeah.
Kansas State's the only one that's like somewhat been pretty real so
They're
far.
the only one holding out. Even in like the top 6 teams, they're the only one that's even top 6.
Yeah.
That for preseason. It's crazy. I mean, it's not even like Utah and Oklahoma State are just like kind of flat. They're both just respectfully horrible right now. It's insane.
Let's Anyways, let's jump. I wanted to talk about the ACC for a minute. Very interesting conference. Virginia Tech, our Hokies are starting to look alive here.
They are looking a little bit better.
But I wanted to highlight Miami and Clemson this week. Virginia is a very underrated team. That's another funny thing. I think me and Chase both had Virginia in last for our ACC predictions, and Virginia is 4-3 right now. So
yeah, before this week they were what was it? They were 2-1 in conference.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously they're starting to dip down, but still proved us wrong a little bit.
I mean, I think 4-3 if Virginia makes a bowl game, I think that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
If they did that.
But Clemson and Miami, they both won. Both offenses look great, but they let the other team score a lot of points. To where I don't know how to feel about them right now. Miami letting Louisville score 45 is kind of a concern for me. I'm not taking anything. Louisville's a good team. They've kind of just like been unlucky, wrong end of the stick, kind of like a couple teams we've talked about. But Clemson letting Virginia score 31. I know 21 of those were in the fourth, so probably garbage time points, but still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that one thing that's kind of shocking to me is how the defenses across the conference just don't look good to me. Like no one's defense looks good to me. Like even Clemson. Clemson's done well. They're 6-1, 5-0 in conference. They're looking like they're going to be in the ACC championship as of now. And they've had, I mean, some of it's been garbage time, but I mean, they're still beating Virginia 48-31.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to Virginia, but you shouldn't be letting them score that much points.
Yeah. I think
now it looks like some of that was in the fourth quarter, but still, I mean, that's a lot of points to give up.
Yeah. Now I'm still riding the Pony Express. I still have faith in SMU right now.
SMU's there.
3-0
in conference
play. The most they've allowed was to TCU, which is kind of wild, but I mean they still put up 66 on them. But these last few weeks they've looked pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. That win for BYU just looks better and better every week. We've talked about it.
Sure does.
To where I don't know, we may have SMU in the ACC championship, and no one's really talking about it right now, which is
I think after the BYU loss, people wrote them off,
but I mean, look at the remaining schedule. They have Duke at Duke, then they have Pitt at home, Boston College at home. So those are two, probably of those three. Those are the two you'd want at home, at Virginia, and then Cal at home.
Yeah. Not the easiest, but definitely not the hardest.
No, they could definitely have a harder.
Right in the middle. That's all.
Yeah, it's like right in the middle. Team. It's like all the middle teams in the
winnable games.
Yeah, to where I don't know. SMU might very well win out here. Just something to think about for all of our listeners. SMU is right there.
Yeah, they sure are. I think one thing we need to talk about right now is the state of the Big Ten right now.
All right.
I think there's something happening in the Big Ten. Many of you realize it, but number 1 is number 13 Indiana Hoosiers, and Also in the running is the number 20 Illinois Fighting Illini. The Big Ten is weird right now. I mean, you've got 5 teams ranked. 2 of those are Indiana and Illinois. Who would have thought that? Illinois is quietly 6-1 with a big win this week over Michigan. You also have Indiana 7-0, who just trounced Nebraska, who we all thought was pretty good. At least a comparable opponent. We had them in our, I think they're floating in our top 30 still. They were 29 or something this week. Nebraska's a good team. And Indiana just housed them.
Nebraska had 0 rushing touchdowns against them coming into this game. And Indiana had 5 rushing touchdowns. 5.
So Nebraska hadn't allowed a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, they hadn't allowed one. And Indiana just said, yeah, screw that. We're going to put 5 on you.
Yeah, that's insane. Indiana right now is the highest scoring offense in the country by a lot.
Yeah.
They're the highest scoring offense in the country. Not to mention their defense isn't horrible either. Now, they haven't played the greatest opponents. We've been over this. The schedule isn't that great. It's getting better. But we're in mid-October. Late October, you could argue. And Indiana is the highest scoring team in the country.
Yeah.
That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, they have Washington at Michigan State, Michigan at home, and then at Ohio State.
So they've got 5 games left right there. Chase, what do you think is their record in those 5 games?
I think 4-1.
You say they beat Washington, Michigan State, and Michigan.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not saying no to that, but that is just still insane.
It's just crazy to think that Indiana, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're like the Cinderella team that always just, they're right there, and then they just dive off the last few weeks. You never know,
A lot of times that does happen with these Power 5 teams. That
yeah, to where we
remember 2022 Kansas.
I could see them going 2-2 in these games, But yeah. I think 3-1. I don't see them winning at Ohio State as of right now.
Yeah, well, the way they played against Nebraska, they could beat a lot of teams, but I don't know if they'll beat Ohio State.
Right. At Ohio State, Ohio State, they already have a loss. It's pretty much they got to win out too, to where, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And then jumping over to Illinois, very unpredicted team to be ranked right now.
However, I remember literally saying to you, well, several different times, like before the season, I was like, I don't see Illinois being very good. They were good a couple seasons ago. I just don't know where that's coming from. Obviously, I didn't know Illinois football very well.
Yeah.
But even last week, I said Illinois and Michigan are both not very deserving to be ranked. I still somewhat hold that opinion. I do believe Illinois does deserve to be ranked, but not by much. We have them at like 23 in our poll.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about right. Yeah. I think them being number 20 at 6-1, the record isn't that strong. And so for me, Illinois is still a weak 6-1 relative to other teams. But I'm excited for them to prove themselves. And they've got at number 1 Oregon this week.
I can tell you they're not going to prove themselves this week.
Well, they could. I mean, they could not necessarily win in the game, but they can do a lot. When you're playing the number 1 team in the country, you can do a lot more without winning.
It's true. Looking at ESPN right now, Oregon is coming into that game favored. Take a guess. Let's just hear a guess.
I would say 18.
25.
Oh, my gosh. I thought 18 was kind of stretching. The way you said it, I was like, all right, they're probably more than 2 touchdowns. I'm saying 18. Wow, 25. That's 3.5 scores.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Wow.
Yeah.
Vegas has no hope in Illinois.
I hope my Ducks live up to that. I think
that's a high spread. I don't know if I don't know if Oregon would cover that. Maybe they will.
Oregon came off the huge win. A lot of teams kind of die or let people down or barely win the next week. But, they had a very dominant performance, 35-0 shutout, playing very vanilla the second half. Probably could have been a lot more. But, yeah, the Big Ten, very interesting. Penn State's right there, 6-0, 3-0 in conference.
This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Penn State right now.
I just don't think Penn State is the number 3 team in the country. I'm sorry.
So they're in AP, they're number 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just find that a little crazy. If we're looking at a playoff rankings, we actually get a committee to look at it. I mean, and even like us, you got to look at more than just the 6-0. I know that undefeated does mean quite a bit alone. No matter who you played, undefeated there's a status to it. But this is not. I mean, have you watched them play?
Well,
like, no offense, they're top 10.
Like
they're top 7.
let's look at their wins here.
I think they're very well deserving of a top 8 spot right now.
They beat Illinois 21-7. Granted, it was at home,
and Illinois has looked better since then. But that was also a sleepy 21-7. I mean,
but they that
game was 14-7 most of the game, or 13-7.
Yeah, they also needed overtime to beat USC, who just lost to Maryland.
It looks worse and worse every week.
Also lost to Minnesota.
Yeah,
to where, I don't know.
And you can't say it was on the road because USC isn't a road environment. We know that
they don't have any fans,
especially during the day. I mean, they had every reason to kill them on that one.
Well, and then they don't even put up like 30 on UCLA. I'm just like, I don't know what to think of Penn State right now.
Yeah, it's just I am not high on Penn State.
34-27 over Bowling Green. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, the Bowling Green one's the one that really stuck it for me.
These next 2 weeks will be very telling for Penn State at Wisconsin, 5:30 p.m., which would be 6:30 p.m. local time.
Is this going to be on our Pick'em, Chase?
Probably. I'll throw it on there.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now. I know this is not our Pick'em episode. We'll have that out later this week.
I think
live with you guys. I'm picking Wisconsin.
But
that would be crazy.
But then they have big noon kickoff, Ohio State, the next week. Yeah. So next 2 weeks will be very telling for.
I love you guys at big noon kickoff, but we're playing Ohio State at 10 a.m. So dumb. Still hate it.
That
should be wide out, but it's not.
That needs to be a wide out night game. I'm sorry, but
still mad about it. Chase, I mean, we could still go to Penn State versus Washington. Tickets are probably cheaper now. It's a wide out game.
It's true.
It'll be kind of fun. Anyways, so that's gonna be at night too. But I mean, Penn State for me is 6-0. But you look at the teams that are around. So right now they're ranked above Texas. They're ranked above Ohio State. They're ranked above Tennessee.
Miami, LSU.
Miami, they could be above Miami,
but
barely.
I mean, they have the 6-0 record, but I think talent-wise, which I think people need to start considering sometimes, Ohio State and Texas beat them. I think both of them say the playoff starts today, neutral site, Sugar Bowl, Rose Bowl, whatever. Texas and Ohio State beat Penn State. I really do believe that.
I do want to. Well. It's an interesting one. Yeah, I think they do beat them, and I know we don't use that as the only metric, but it is still a metric to use because obviously it's college football. Anything can happen. But I think that is important because I think that Tennessee and I mean I don't have them ranked above Tennessee, right? Or I don't have them ranked below Tennessee. I do have them above them, but I think Ohio State, Texas are still better than Penn State. I mean, deserve to be above Penn State.
Yeah.
If you want to go that way. Resume, they should be above Penn State. I mean, Penn State's resume is extremely weak right now. That is not a very strong 6-0. So I'm excited to see what they do the next 2 weeks. I mean, prove me wrong. Like I always say, prove me wrong. You just haven't proven anything yet. Really. You guys know it. You guys know you haven't. Prove me wrong. Also, might I say, if you're thinking that I don't like Penn State or Sned doesn't like Penn State, just remember Penn State's like kind of always been my go-to casual. I love Penn State.
Yeah, I love Penn State.
Penn State's lit.
I love Penn State.
I would love for Penn State to be good.
Yeah, based on what I've watched this season, I just don't think they're that good of a football team.
Yeah, bias aside, I mean, I
think they're top 10. Don't get me wrong. I think they're a top 10 team, but I don't think they're where they're at top team. I don't know. Maybe I'll eat my words because I have every week this season. Maybe they'll win it all, and I'll just be sitting here looking at this podcast like, wow, I'm an idiot. But yeah. But this is kind of random. But let's just take a look at the bottom 4 of the top 25 just for fun. SMU 22, Army 23, Navy 24, Vanderbilt 25. Washington State and Syracuse and UNLV are the next 3.
Also, you can keep going up the list and it gets crazier too.
Duke, South Carolina, Liberty.
No, and even go up the list at 19 is Pittsburgh, 20 is Illinois. Like, that's crazy.
And then 13 is Indiana. Yeah, it's just like this season has been awesome.
It's been a fun season.
As a college, obviously Oregon's number 1. I have no reason to complain, but just as a college football fan who watches anything he can on Saturdays, Fridays too, and Thursdays now, honestly. It's just been a fun season. Every week I go in now, I'm just like, there's going to be some crazy upset this week to where it just gets better every week.
It seriously does. This season has just kept on giving. It's been such a fun season to be a college football fan. And of course, this week has changed, but last week was the first time, you guys probably saw the stats around. It was the first time we didn't have Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, or Michigan. I think LSU also. Those 5 teams. It's the first time none of those 5 teams were in the top 3 in 10 years.
Yeah.
It was Texas, Oregon, Penn State, which is now obviously Texas fell out. Georgia jumped back in. But still, I mean, it's just fun to see some different teams in there. We still got Ohio State. They're still floating around. Georgia's still floating around, of course. But it's just fun when you have more fresh blood.
Well, it's just the 12-team playoff. It's just like I was kind of skeptical about it, but I'm so happy that it's a thing now. I think this season will be very fun for the 12-team playoff. I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, and I think the 12-team playoff increases. There's pros and cons, but I think the 12-team playoff encourages parity across college football as teams can pitch. Like, hey, we made the playoff last year. But they're only ranked number 9.
I was about to say, along with the transfer portal, NIL.
Same as the transfer portal.
Same as NIL. I hate a lot of it. A lot of it's about money now, especially for the players.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't blame
There's cons. There's cons.
If I was an 18-year-old in high school, 4-star, 5-star, and I got offered some $1 million to come play, I'd probably go play too. I can't really say I wouldn't do that. But
right.
But yeah, this the way this season's gone. We've said it before, but like, shoot, Boise State plays UNLV this week. Probably a deciding factor of the Mountain West. Boise State.
That's huge. Guys, week 9 is actually kind of stacked. I mean, I didn't realize it was till this week. We're going to talk about it more on Thursday, but Chase is right. I mean, it is a nice slate of games. Even the unranked versus ranked games are so good.
Yeah. Well, and then like we were saying about the Big 12, and we said it before, Boise State, if they win this game and win out, and Iowa State loses somewhere, BYU loses somewhere, Boise State could be the 4 in the playoff.
Yeah, because I don't see with their schedule them rising above number 8, number 9. Like I don't see a 12-0 Boise State getting above. I mean, 7 maybe.
They're lost.
They could be higher than Iowa State or BYU or Kansas State.
Yeah, to where let's say BYU and Iowa State. BYU.
Everyone just assumes. No offense. Everyone just assumes that Iowa State, BYU, or Kansas State's getting the bid to number 4 because we just assume that. But it could not be that pretty easily.
Like, it's just
Boise State's
fun.
good.
Boise State's really good. Yeah, to where I don't know. Yeah,
Boise State would have to win out for that to happen. If they had one loss, they're not doing that. They're ranked 15.
They have to win out for sure.
So I mean, they got to win out.
Yeah,
and just remember, it comes down to a conference championship game too. If Boise State's 12-0, they run the table and they get upset by UNLV or Fresno. Well, Fresno's not that good anymore. They get upset in the conference championship. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It'll knock the Mountain West completely out of the picture. And you've got Memphis in there.
It's true.
Crazy. Yeah. I think Memphis also is they're climbing back. They have no votes, but they're climbing back up. Their only loss is to Navy, which looked horrible at the time, but that's a ranked loss now.
Yeah, that's a good loss now.
That's a great loss now. I mean, so you look at Navy, Army. And sorry, I skipped over Navy Army when I said my next group of 5 teams. I mean, excuse me. I always think they're independent.
I was going to say, you kind of skipped over the top of the American, just jumped in.
Sorry.
But
I always tend to look
Army, Navy, man.
At them as independents.
I wish College Game Day was going to Navy for Notre Dame at Navy because
I love the games at Navy.
I love it. It's at Navy. So funny.
Hey, you know what's crazy, though? We're going to talk about this next week. I keep on saying that, but next week's so good. Notre Dame is favored by 12.5 going into Navy. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's probably one of the games I'm most excited.
Oh, wait, excuse us. This is a neutral site game. This is not a Navy, Sned.
Oh, that's why.
It's at MetLife Stadium in New York.
I didn't realize that. Okay, that makes sense.
I forgot about that.
Makes sense why it's not. I forgot they always play there. Dang.
Yeah.
No, but shout out to Indiana. They deserve College Game Day.
They do deserve it.
It's probably not the best game on the schedule.
I know. I'm surprised they went to that and Washington. I am surprised.
But I mean, like looking at everything else, Texas A&M, LSU, they've already been at College Station.
Yeah.
Vandy, Texas, they were at Texas last week. Bama, Missouri. Bama's not. Both those teams are looking pretty bad right now.
Yeah, Bama, Missouri. I mean, yes. I mean, I think they just wanted to go to Indiana because Indiana has all this hype.
Yeah. It's just they're it's the hype right now. And Washington, they're in the championship last year. They're not that good, but is what it is.
I mean, something to talk about. Washington State's a better team right now. I'll tell you that.
Washington State is the better team.
I'll tell you that. Washington State's almost ranked, and they're ranked in our poll. Their only losses to Boise State. Now they did get beat, but they're 6-1.
Yeah.
So very impressive from those guys.
There's a lot of stuff we will talk about on Thursday with our pick'ems.
Yes, we will. But Chase, I want to finish up with one more segment. I think it's important to reckon as there was a field rush this week. There was a field rush over at Tennessee. And how do you feel about I think we need to put it in stone here. How do you feel about field rushing and then on top of that taking down goalposts? Because I have an imaginary rule in my head. I want to hear what you say.
There was another field rush this week. Maryland USC.
Oh, to Maryland? I didn't even realize Maryland rushed the field.
Maryland rushed the field. But for me, Tennessee, Bama, neither of those teams deserve to win, in my opinion. They both did not look that great, in my honest opinion. But, it was 11-7. I don't know. That's just like, I get rushing the field. Bama's a top 10 team. But for me personally, if you're 11, it's kind of like, well, you're pretty much at that point top 10 too,
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, to rush the field, if you're a ranked team, you have to be a top 5 team.
Or like maybe if you're top 10.
If you're top 10, I don't know. See,
it's hard because it depends on the program.
See, like Oregon
level, it can make a program look bad.
See, like Oregon rushing for Ohio State, I get that. I mean, obviously I'm an Oregon fan, but it's 3-2. It's pretty much a rivalry already to where I get that.
Question: did Alabama rush the field against Georgia? I actually don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think they did. I think that's interesting because basically that's the top win you could have.
We're at the point of the season where one school sees a team rush the field, like, okay, we're rushing the field if we win. I feel like I just see these random field rushes. I'm like, well, you don't deserve to rush the field,
Yeah, and I think for me it's like there are it's hard to set one rule for all schools, but I think the general consensus is like I think across the country, the absolute bare minimum. There are some schools that are above this, like Bama, and maybe we'll talk about Tennessee. I think if you beat a top 10 team at home, it's fairly acceptable for most programs.
I think so.
But if you're Oregon, I think they're even in this. If you're also in the top 10 yourself, then it's different. It's got to be a monumental win. It's got to be a top 3 team. It's got to be, it's got to be insane.
I agree.
And so it's hard to Tennessee rushing the field, I think was appropriate, but I think them taking on the goalposts was like, all right, bro. Like
they're just trying to do the 2022 thing again,
It was like you're just trying to
I don't know. But then a couple of our friends at the BYU game said there were students trying to rush the field after a crazy last second drive against. I'm like, bro, you're playing 3-3 Oklahoma State.
Yeah. Well, those are people who just don't watch football. I mean, those are people who just don't understand football.
We won at the last second. Well, it's like you should be up by a lot more at this point.
Well, I think it's actually a statement I think it's actually a statement too when a team. I think it shows the maturity of a program. I think it actually is evidence when you see a team not rush the field after being a big opponent.
Well, yeah, I don't want to go against your team here, but when I went to Oregon BYU 2 years ago now, Oregon was 25, BYU was 12, and we killed BYU. We killed them.
Yeah.
And everyone just waited because they let you on the field after every game. Oregon does. They let the players get off, then they let you in. You can mess around. And everyone just waited. Everyone's like, all right, sweet, I'll just wait. No one tried to rush the field or anything to where, and that's like 25-12. That's a pretty significant.
Well, and I think it has to do with the program though. I would say the problem is there's different levels of it's not just a rank.
Yeah.
Because it depends. Let's say Bama goes to BYU, but Bama's having a bad season and they're unranked, but you beat Bama. That feels different than being another unranked team. Or let's say Bama, you know what I'm saying? Let's say Bama right now plays at BYU and BYU beats them. It's not a top 10 team, but I think a field rush at that point would be acceptable because it's Alabama. It's not just any top 15 team.
Yeah, I don't know. For me,
So, I mean, I've noticed a few teams this year that haven't rushed the field for some games. And I've been like, all right, that means they're ready to take another step up.
yeah, it's like the fans knew they were going to win almost.
Yeah, or at least like, hey, we got bigger things coming.
Yeah,
I think there's a level of you can judge a program on it. I mean, you look at Arizona State; they rushed the field against Utah. Utah was what 21 or something. I can't even remember, but I mean, it was like, all right, guys, like if when you rush the field, this shows that it's your Super Bowl, basically.
well, I mean, for Arizona State, I do get that. They've been kind of awful these last few years. But Utah, man, Utah's like the worst Utah team in a decade to where
it's true.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Maryland against USC, acceptable. It's USC. I don't care how bad they are. Maryland is a program that does not get these wins. I think that was acceptable. You can't do it again. You used that one, but it takes a step up. And so, I mean, Vanderbilt beating Bama, obviously, we're all unanimous about that one. But I think it makes a statement when a team doesn't rush the field. Like Bama beating Georgia. Like, no, it's just Bama never rushes the field. There's not a win that's big enough at Bama to rush the field. You can't even win a game big enough for that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just insane to me. Do you think Texas would have rushed the field if they beat Georgia?
I don't know because they were number one.
I mean, a lot of it does depend on how the game actually goes. I mean,
if it was like a game-winning
blowout,
field,
then they won't.
but if it was like a game-winning field, I could see it. I get that, but I don't know. It's just like you said. It just depends so much on the situation.
It's true because some people want to set a rule or a hard set thing, and I do get it because I think you need to you can't, if you're a Power 5 school, you really shouldn't rush the field unless it's a top 10 win. But there's so many. Maryland, I mean, that's obviously a Vanderbilt. That's obviously a exception to that. I guess Vanderbilt wasn't, but it's interesting to think about. But anyways, guys, I'm excited for this week. It's gonna be such a good week. College football just keeps on giving. Got some great games. We got Navy Notre Dame ranked matchup, Vanderbilt Texas ranked matchup. We've got Indiana Washington for College game day. We've got Boise State UNLV. Thursday, we've got Syracuse Pittsburgh, which Syracuse could knock them off.
Low key, a good game.
Very good game.
LSU,
Oklahoma, Ole Miss.
LSU, Texas A&M.
Great game. Top 15 matchup.
SMU, Duke. Another good game.
Wow.
Oregon, Illinois.
Duke's quietly 6-1, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, Oregon, Illinois. I think BYU, UCF will be a very good game. I hate to say that to Chase, but I think that's going to be a really good game.
I think it's going to be a good game. Kansas State.
Yeah,
Penn State, Wisconsin. Almost every ranked team is playing a really great game. Missouri, Bama, Florida State, Miami. I mean, Florida State has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever right now.
That's not going to happen.
Florida State, I mean, at that point, it's so bad that it could happen because it's so egregious.
Well, the thing with Miami is you have to
That would be the most Miami thing ever, Chase.
Yeah. The thing with Miami is you have to score more points than them, and Florida State's offense just sucks. Like,
you got to be able to score more than 20 points a game to beat them.
Yeah, Miami scores like every possession. So
yeah, that's valid.
Yeah. Anyways, boys and girls, that is our Week 8 reactions.
Yeah, guys. Excited to be back. But we'll see you guys next time on Show
Time
College Football. Let's go.